Good morning, everybody. My guest this morning is Linda Holliday. She's an entrepreneur who has spent a career at the intersection of media, marketing, and tech, building leading-edge strategies, technologies, and companies that empower the most demanding marketers and publishers to learn, teach, target, sell, and storytell across an ever-expanding array of opportunities and challenges. She is the founder and chief executive of Citia, and the first and only third-party system that creates swipeable card-based media flows that integrate into the native feeds and flows on mobile media. Linda, are you ready to take us to the top?
Ready. Great.
This is like Tinder for enterprise content, right? Swipe and you're good.
Kind of, yeah. Or Instagram stories for businesses, maybe.
That's probably a better way to say it. So you tell me, what are you doing? What's your business model? How do you make money?
So a little bit of a backswing because Citia is really a thesis-driven business. And the thesis is that a few years ago, the internet really changed from this transitional internet where we were putting stuff like brochures and ads on the internet. And it's become something that's all feeds and flows. The best example is music. Like we used to buy music, a CD or a download, but now it just streams. So all content's going there. It's going to stream. So every company has to make streaming content if they want to participate in the next internet. And we're the platform that lets big companies do that at scale so they can make something on a platform one time and then use it in infinite reconfigurations across any channel.
And what's the business model? Is it SaaS or performance based?
We charge by the month. We have enterprise customers, so we charge for inventories, and they can buy multiple inventories.
And I want to learn more about kind of how the tech actually works. Before we do that, and before we get more of your backstory, Linda, give us an average size here. What's the average enterprise, would you say, pay in a year?
So we're, depending on the size of the contract, 90 to 150,000 a year.
And what kinds of leverage are you using to drive that kind of cost up or down? Is it number of seats, pieces of content? What are the numbers?
So we're trying to price it in a way that we don't throttle our own adoption. So instead of pricing by the seat, we price by cards. And in the future, we may end up going into a storage model as well. So we're trying to, make as much money as we can without, discouraging that more viral adoption inside companies.
What is a card? My audience won't know what that means.
A card is like a post or a pin, a Pinterest card. So when our customers make card-based media, the format is standardized, and that lets us in the background iterate that content across 10 different systems. So it's optimized in every browser and device combination to be beautiful. That's how we get that swiping action. We actually access, the graphic processors, et cetera. We do all the email QA and all the social integrations. So if you're familiar with Unity, it's kind of that concept where a customer makes something once, and then we handle that permanent kind of iteration across all these platforms.
It's essentially like you've created the Lincoln log for kind of web streaming, streaming 2.0, and you then take that Lincoln log, that chunk of content, and can build many, many different things with it.
I love that. Exactly. We say Lego.
I get 10%.
Yeah, that's great. No one has said Lincoln logs yet.
I just want to make it relatable for my audience. And, I actually do relate to this because all these interviews I do with CEOs, they auto create cards in my database at getlatka.com. And what we're doing is, it's nowhere near your sophistication level. I need to check you guys out. But we take those cards that can be easily embedded in blog posts and other forms of media on mobile, and it's working so well, thinking in forms of Lincoln logs versus static content.
Exactly, because what's happened is we've kind of gone to a small piece ecology. Like a lot of what was built in the past was built on almost like a high rise. Like you had a giant website and you had all these special purpose digital content elements. And they're big and they're not easy to use. If you just think about your chunks of content like you did and wanting to shoot them wherever you want them to go and having uniform metrics that come back to you, that's the system that fits the new feed and stream ecology.
And when you update the core Lincoln log, it auto updates across all the instances, right?
Exactly.
You're smiling because that's a big selling point for you guys, isn't it?
Well, it's a big pain point for our customers, right? All that stuff gets out of sync because, a lot of this technology has been built for startups. It's like hand-to-hand combat. And I say there's a big difference between playing pickup ball and running the Lakers. Like the Lakers has a parking concession, right? It's a complex business with lots of moving parts, lawyers, regulations, global fans, et cetera. So managing all of that media across all these regions and channels is not just difficult, it's a liability issue.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Now, take me back here. When did you launch the company, and have you decided to bootstrap or have you raised capital?
Well, we launched in 2012 and we were working mostly with publishers. So we did some really cool work with like Kevin Kelly and Snoop Dogg. But we decided they weren't really ready for what we were doing in terms of business models and commitments. So we decided.
Snoop Dogg is never ready. Let me just tell you, he's never ready.
He's more ready than you think. He's pretty amazing. And we learned a lot from those projects. It actually allowed us to perfect the software with some really, imaginative people and use cases. So that was really great. And it was really hard. Like if you could make a book like What Technology Wants into Cards, that's, you've kind of set the bar out as far as it needs to go. Anything else is easier. But then we just pivoted to companies who are more kind of serious about really rocking this new era. And we look for big companies like GE, Comcast, MasterCard, Viacom.
How many do you work with now today? How many customers?
We have 12 enterprise customers.
Got it. So this is very much a kind of a low volume, high touch, high ACV model versus a volume, low ARPU model.
Correct.
Yep. Now, you mentioned earlier kind of the contract value of around 90 grand minimum. Can I take that times 12 and assume you guys are doing about 90 grand a month? Is that fair?
Around there. I mean, the problem with these big customers, and we have like Fortune 100s, maybe Fortune 30s or whatever, but they're pretty slow to pay. So the lag time between a yes and maybe even being in market and getting the revenue is the thing that we have.
How long? What's the sales cycle?
The sales cycle's short. The pay cycle's long. So, I mean, we usually get a yes in a first meeting, but we are kind of cherry picking who we call on. And then it takes...
Linda, how are you doing that?
So we look for tells, like a poker tell, like when companies are actually talking about innovation in a way that is fearless and not romantic. The problem with publishers is they're very romantic about what they make. GE just wants to survive or win. So when we hear those signals from a big company, because it's painful to change from the way they used to change to the way they need to be. And so when we hear that that's serious, that's when we go in.
What are you spending? Well, actually, before I ask you what your CAC is, I mean, have you bootstrapped this or have you raised?
We raised an angel round a couple years ago, and we've been bootstrapping and running off our revenues.
So how much total has been invested in the company?
We're not really talking about that now.
Help me understand. I won't push you more on that, but strategically help me understand why.
Well, the positioning to potential raises and whatnot is pretty delicate craft, and we want to make sure we do that really well.
Got it.
All the metrics, right?
Yeah. My research team, they do a great job at getting data. What they brought back to me was you guys have raised about 2.8 million. It was pretty public in a press release. Is that accurate?
At one point it was accurate.
Okay. How does that number change? You pay some of it back, or? I
put some more of my money in. We've been, making money. So, there's more invested in the business than that at this point.
I got it. And now give me more of your backstory. So people are going, wait, where did Linda get money from? She must have had something big successful after this. How'd you do it? Why'd you launch the company, and where were you at a mental state when you did that?
Well, I had a significant exit a few years ago, sold a company to Publicis, and decided to do what everybody does, became an angel investor. And I was very excited about all this new technology. It was Christmas in 2007, the cloud, the iPhone, HTML5. I couldn't wait to just sit around and tell people what I thought they should do. But
what was the company, Linda, that you sold to Publicis or Publicis?
It was called NBC, and then it was Digitas Health, and now it's, I think, Publicis Health.
Okay. And when you say significant, if that's a very relative term, is there any way you can quantify that?
I never had to work again.
Okay, good. That's good. So but you didn't go buy $100 million jet, but it was enough for you to have to work again.
Right. No, it was enough to actually fund some, projects, big special projects too, which is, I had already been running, that was my fourth exit. So I had already kind of been living the life I had in mind. So I didn't really have a pent up need to get off ramen or anything. And I'm more interested in making media and what's coming. I'm very excited, and I got disappointed with what I saw, which was a lot of iterative thinking, page turning stuff, It wasn't very imaginative. And we really got all the technology we needed to make anything we can think of. Literally, anything you can think of, you can make at this point. And so I just had to get off the sidelines and get back on the field because I really didn't see people approaching media with that kind of imagination. And my background is design and systems sciences. From
I know I'm looking at this. I can't read it, so don't worry. But I'm looking at this whiteboard behind you with these very organized Post-it notes going, she must be like a systems thinker.
Yeah.
What are you at today in terms of team size?
We're 13.
Okay. All based are you in New York?
We're all in New York.
New York City. So launched in 2012, 13 folks full-time, New York, up to kind of 12 enterprise customers. What are you finding you're having to spend to land these guys? Like fully weighted, would you say?
Well, our payback's well under a year. We don't really spend a lot on media. We do a little bit of promoting posts. It's pretty organic. And the biz dev department, of which I am one, there's 1.5 of us. I'm the half. We do all this pretty much direct. We're definitely looking up. Our platform is pretty DIY now, so we're looking at opening up a self-serve version of that and looking at the pipeline and seeing how that fills our funnel out this year.
Maybe decrease, like maybe moving kind of price point down, but do a no-touch sales, self-serve kind of model. Possibly,
that's the part we're trying to figure out right now. We obviously can do that, but there's a lot of demand in the product we do have. So we're more interested at the moment in lead gen.
How do you introduce that kind of no-touch product without eroding your enterprise revenue?
By not pricing it less.
Okay, got it. So you would make it DIY, but keep it the same price.
Yeah, and there's so many features in these platforms. If it came down to crippling some, metrics or number of cards available, there's a lot we could do to kind of, encourage customers to move up into more fully featured versions. It does kind of happen organically, though. One of the weird and wonderful things about the platform is when people buy it for one purpose, they start using it for a lot of other purposes. So customers are using it for training, for employee communications, for publicity, for product information, all kinds of things. So their usage actually grows, and then hopefully our price points will grow, elegantly with them.
With these 12 enterprise customers you have, and considering your background, you've had many, many exits, you've been in this space for a while. How many of these customers have been your customers across many different companies?
One.
Oh, really? I was expecting that you just take this chunk of 10 core customers and launch them into whatever new product you come up with.
No, actually only one.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, one.
Customers all have the same problems, right? So it's a little bit indistinguishable when you go between like a Comcast, a GE. They all have the same scale problems. They all have, the growth, their own kind of internal processes. A lot of their challenges have to do with being big, right? And so they're very common across the companies.
What does your churn and retention look like, or it's hard for you to measure that because the cohort's so small?
It's really, our business is really chunky with this kind of customer set, but I'd say it's well under 10%.
Annually?
Yeah.
That's great. In terms of both revenue and logo churn?
Yeah, only logo churn. Revenue is, net positive, growing.
Got it. You mean like net negative, where your expansion is way more than your, yeah.
Yes.
By the way,
yeah.
I'm dyslexic. I always get that.
Get that upside down, right?
Well, because you have churn and retention, and then you have net negative or positive. And it's like, whew. Okay. So just to be clear, your expansion revenue on your base even always eclipses any lost revenue you've gotten over the past year.
And things happen like GE divested a unit, and so that new company that bought it signed a contract.
Yep.
Right, so that happens for us too.
What team are you typically selling into?
When we do outbound, we're looking for often a marketing person or an innovations person. It can be a P&L person, though, who has a real business agenda that's clear. So it's more about the mindset to change that we identify, but they tend to be top line people looking for new ways to make markets because that's gotten so tough.
And are you inventing kind of a new line item in the budget of these folks, or are you replacing something?
We're mostly replacing internal tech. So
like internal CMS stuff?
Not CMS so much, but custom technology. So sometimes we say it's like going from custom kitchens to kind of an IKEA kitchen. They're replacing their, single purpose media built on more, kind of outdated and expensive platforms with expensive partners. One of our customers did a study where 90% out cost solution. And at the same time, we have a huge impact on metrics. So it's often 10 times the metrics they got in the prior strategies and tactics. So it's a cost out and an impact up scenario. And what they replace are old things that don't work and some expensive partners, sometimes agencies. A lot of these customers are also trying to do more of this work in-house.
Last question here before we wrap up with the famous 5, lifetime value. This is obviously like a finger in the air, right? But for you, how do you think about lifetime value and how does that help guide your business, if it does at all?
The lifetime value is unknown because these inventories have value themselves. It's kind of like your shopping list on other platforms you might use. So there's a big cost in these customers moving their assets off of our platform. So we think that makes us pretty sticky. And as they get more and more comfortable with communicating out of more of an asset or a library framework rather than a campaign framework, they'll continue to reuse all these things. One of the big, profound changes is that the customer journeys have become nonlinear. They used to be a little bit more tightly managed by these companies. So they need all these assets constantly to be refreshing all these different customer journeys. And, they live on our system and it's such a lean approach to what they've been doing. I think there's a lot of room for us to stay really vital and well priced for them.
So do you assume a minimum of at least 3 years?
I think permanent myself. I mean, I can be proved wrong, but I think it's just like an Oracle or AWS that you have a kind of, your customers know how to use you. They've given you their product in input and you've incorporated the meaningful input into the product and that we can have a long-term healthy relationship with them. We're really clear about our business model. It's to make our customers successful.
Yeah, I asked the LTV question though, because if you assume infinite lifetime value, you could get really aggressive on CAC and then that can get you in trouble. So I'm just curious, in your most conservative world, do you think about an LTV minimum?
Well, I think it's many millions of dollars because, we're at such a, rounding error to that right now. Right now, our payback is less than a year, even at that price. So I think the room for us to go is at least, 10 times that.
It makes good sense, Linda. I love the product. I love the space you guys are in. It's going to be fun to watch you. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
Team of Teams.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying right now?
Well, Jeff Bezos, that's like being alive when Henry Ford figured everything out. If you're not studying him, you're missing something.
Number 3, besides your own, is there a favorite online tool you have?
Okay, this is silly, but Apple Notes is amazing because Siri is the best dictation software in the world and it's free and it automatically updates in the cloud on every device you use. So that's like my microphone. I'm talking to it constantly. I do the same exact thing. And it's free, which is the best. Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night? 6.
Okay, it's pretty good. And what's your situation? Married, single, you have kids?
Married.
Any kiddos?
No kids.
No kids. And do you mind me asking, Linda, how old you are?
Oh.
We'll skip that. We'll skip that one. Take us back.
Okay.
Take us back to your 20-year-old self. What do you wish she knew?
Okay, that's interesting. I think maybe I would have cut some losses faster.
There you guys have it from Linda. She would have cut some losses faster. She's now building a brand new company in the kind of content management space relative to the new web and sliding and flipping and all this kind of stuff. Launched it in 2012. They've put over $2.8 million into the company, both her own money because she's had successful exits and outsider capital. Their team of 13 is based in New York. They're working with over 12 enterprise level brands, paying over $90,000 per year. On average, again, as they scale and grow, doing around doing around $90,000 per month in revenue with super healthy economics. Linda, thank you so much for taking us to the top.
great to be here. Thanks for having me.